All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming tonight. First, I'd like to just acknowledge that as members of the CSU community, I'd like to acknowledge the words of the Wiradjuri people on whose land our university was founded and share their aspiration of Yindimaro Nanana. They aim for us all to learn the wisdom of respectfully living well in a land worth living in. And I'd like to pay my respect to the traditional custodians of the lands where I live and work. That's the Darawal people. And I also extend that respect to any First Nations peoples present here today. Feel free to introduce yourself and put your country in the chat. Yes, so thanks so much for coming to this session today or for listening later. This Meet Your Future PhD Supervisor session, or HDR Supervisor, is featuring academics from the School of Information and Communication Studies at Charles Sturt University. So I am Casey Garrison, the Associate Head of School for Research in the School of Information and Communication Studies, which we call SICS. And in that role, I also coordinate our higher degree by research courses. So first in this session, I'm going to share a little bit of information about the research degrees in our school and some pathways you may take to the PhD. Then each of the academics eligible to be a supervisor will share a bit about their research, including topics and methodologies and things that they research that they would like to supervise. And then we'll have some questions at the end. So this session is being recorded and will be posted on our SICS YouTube channel, which I shared in the chat there. And there's also a QR code at the end. So if you would like more information, please don't hesitate to email me. My email is here, and I also have that on the last slide. And I will say on our SICS YouTube channel, last year we did a session about about research courses in general. So that might be a useful one to have a look at too, to get a bit more information about some of our research degrees outside of this session. So first, what do we have available? And just noting here, we've added this little icon as we've been ranked in the top 100 universities worldwide for studying library and information management in the QS subject ranking. So we're really proud of that ranking. So the highest level of research degree that we have would be the Doctor of Philosophy, so the PhD. And that you can do full-time in 3 years, or you can do it part-time in 6 years. And there is some wiggle room there for leave. And this can be done on campus or online. So we follow what I believe is called the British Mile or British model or style of PhD, where you don't do coursework, which is the format in the US, but you focus solely on a large scale research project and writing your thesis based on that. You have 2 to 3 supervisors that support you through this process from the very beginning when you start to create and design your project through implementation right until the very end where your supervisors give you a big high five on the stage when you graduate. That's our favorite part. Then we have the Master of Philosophy. So that's a smaller scale version of the PhD. But I would say that most of our students go for the PhD as they often already have that master's. Now to get into these 2 research degrees, you must have some research subjects and a dissertation or thesis project from your previous degrees, which may include these courses from our school. So first we have the Masters of Communications honors course, or the Master of Information Studies course with an applied research specialization. And then finally, the graduate certificate in research. And all 3 of these courses include mostly the same 64 points of research projects, of research subjects, including a small project at the end, which we encourage students to use as a pilot project for the PhD to get you thinking about what you might do for that and how you might progress your research. Now, while these subjects are more of a standard format within that defined 14-week session with subject coordinators, they're also unique in that you have a supervisor for these as well, giving you some more individualized feedback and supporting you as you develop your research. So we consider these the degree pathways into the PhD and Master of Philosophy. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit, about our funding support. Now we do have some limited options for funding, but there's a few out there. So these are broader for domestic students who can apply for a fee offset scholarship or a fee waiver, and then can also apply for the what we call the AGRTP scholarships. That stands for the Australian Government Research and Training Program. And these have twice a year intake for our domestic students. Students can also apply for these scholarships after they start the course. Our international scholarships are a little more limited in number and thus really competitive. So these are due from students every June for a course date to start the following year. Now we will have some time for questions at the end of this session as, again, we plan to focus on supervisors. So I won't go into more detail about these courses, but I will find the link to the recording that we did last year, which gave a little bit more detail and had some graduate students talk as well about their experiences. But please feel free to email me for some more details on your specific situation. Okay, so with that, we will now meet the supervisors. And just as a reminder to my colleagues, you have about 3 minutes to chat so that we have some time for questions. We're going to start first with our communications supervisor, and then we'll move to information studies. So with that, you are up, Rachel Walls.
Hello. So for those of you who are joining in today, as well as for those who might listen in later on record, my name is Rachel. I am a researcher and practitioner in screen media. So I both make and study all kinds of screen media, but my own research is quite rooted in a kind of early history of motion pictures and how the flow of both storytelling and technical processes have led us to where we are right now, including the kind of nihilistic downfall of media in an era of moving away from terrestrial broadcast, moving away from long form storytelling and all of that kind of stuff. Because I both make and study media, there are frameworks through which I do this. I mostly rely on continental philosophy as a kind of constructivist framework through which I analyze media. And there are to an extent with, say, modern media that's online, sort of creator producer media, stuff that's in say like things like that go into social media spaces. I do a bit of discourse analysis in that space. But for me, it's a kind of rounded, collaborative and connected space between artifacts, philosophy, history, and discourse, and how they all kind of build towards a kind of cultural moment, and that throughout time there's various cultural moments that can speak to each other and be valuable collectively. So within all of that, that doesn't suggest, I want to suggest that while this is where I live and breathe, that it's certainly not a limitation to how I supervise. I think that the subject of your study is really up to you, but the methods that you employ need to be rigorously deployed. And so I am really quite a stickler about making sure that the research framework you deploy is strategically useful and valuable to you. So I think that that's probably about enough, right, Casey?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, now our next supervisor, George.
Casey, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Very great to meet you. I'm George Yi. This is an overview of my research work. Actually, I have finished writing 2 peer-reviewed research books. The purpose of my research is to examine the best practices in leadership, management, and marketing in information organizations, and to explore the use of information technologies, including AI and AI tools, using surveys and interviews. So currently, I'm writing my 3rd book. In terms of the detailed information about my research projects, please have a look at my personal website. That's me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, George. Very concise. I love it. Okay, now we have our head of school, Professor Tina Du.
Well, thank you very much, Casey, and thanks everyone who are joining us today. I see some familiar faces, Camille, and new friend who are able to join us real time. Also, to who are listening to our recording, we're very passionate to welcome our HDR students to join the school research team. My name is Tina Du. My research focuses on community engagement, human information behavior, library studies, and understanding the impact, social impact of emerging technologies. Two projects we're currently working on with my research team. One is funded by the Australian Research Council Discovery Project, exploring the role of public libraries in Australia in developing the social capital. So we're currently working with 6 public libraries across 4 states in both metropolitan and regional settings to understand the social capital and social cohesion they create for their local communities. The second project we currently exploring is trying to understand how the libraries can be transformed for an inclusive, equitable, and digital future. So if you're interested in those projects, please feel free to contact me. As some images shown on this page, we have worked with multiple communities in my past projects, including Indigenous community in South Australia and called old adult communities. So that's me. Thanks, Casey.
Great, thanks for that, Tina. And then our next supervisor, Yazdan Mansourian.
Thank you, Casey, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. My name is Yazdan Mansourian. My area of research is human information behavior. This is the area that I have been exploring over the past 20 years since I finished my PhD in 2006. And then over the past 9 years, I have focused on a specific concept in human information behavior, which is called serious leisure. If this is a new term for you and it looks like an oxymoron, it includes hobbies, voluntary activities, and amateurism. So what people do during their leisure time to seek, search, share, use, sometimes avoid information, whatever they do with information within that leisure space, leisure time. That's my main focus at the moment. And of course, because this is leisure is about life, so it's multidisciplinary. So that's why there are several links from what I'm doing in information science to other disciplines like sociology, psychology, any other management, any other areas. And then that's why it's a very productive area, and there are many possibilities for PhD studies. I usually use qualitative methods in my research, particularly ground theory and phenomenology, because these qualitative methods gives us an opportunity to explore people's lived experience in real life. So that's why I'm very interested in qualitative research. And recently I finished a number of projects about serious leisure, including bonsai growing in Australia, and I'm exploring how these areas that I mentioned can have overlap for further studies. Thank you very much, and over to you, Casey.
Yes, thank you, Yazdan. And you didn't mention how you are an amazing runner as well, like as in your picture here.
Thank you. I'm still a newcomer in running,
Yes, that's very
Yes,
serious.
thank you.
Serious leisure, yeah.
My serious leisure, yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Yazdan. And next we have Anita Dewey. Oops, sorry, there we go. And Anita's not actually here, but I will note that Anita is really interested in our workplace learning. She runs our work integrated learning program. She's our director. So any research methods or any research projects studying that area, she'd definitely be interested in working with students. As noted here, Anita's into qualitative methods, and here's a few examples from her recent projects. Looking at libraries and librarianship in Indonesia. What questions are people asking New South Wales public libraries? I saw her present on that recently. That was an interesting project. So that's Anita. And next, Hamid.
Thanks, Casey. Good evening, everyone. I'm Hamid Jamali. The primary focus of my research has been for the last few years scholarly communication, and that is how scientists in general use and disseminate information, including journal publishing, open access or open science more broadly, but also the information seeking behavior of scholars. In the last few years, we have done also a few projects on public libraries, but I'm also personally more interested in academic libraries, including the use of research services that they offer. They manage partly some of the research output of the universities. They manage repositories, if you have heard of. But also in the past, some of my PhD students and some of the studies that I've done focused on information behavior of non-academics. So that could be the public or everyday life information seeking behavior. In terms of methods, I've done more quantitative studies, surveys, log analysis, or bibliometric studies, but I also have done qualitative studies and mixed methods. So I'm not restricted in terms of method. Depending on the research question, of course, you can choose any method that you want. And some of my research projects with some of the colleagues, we did a series of studies on journal publishing in Australia. And last year, I finished interviewing a few Australian academic inventors in terms of how they try to bring their science into the market as a product, what we call research commercialization. That's enough about me. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Hamid. Interesting to hear your work. And then moving on to Jane Garner.
Hello, thanks, Casey. I'm Jane. I'm the opposite of Yazdan. I don't run anywhere if possible. But in terms of my research, I'm very much a library-focused researcher rather than an information studies or a technology-based researcher. So I have 2 PhD students at the moment who are studying different elements to do with prison libraries. One is looking at the experience of trying to find legal information once you've been sentenced, and the other is looking at the experience of trying to study higher education from prison and the involvement of the library in that sort of context. So I like to study or supervise projects that look at the impact of libraries on the people who use them. So very much a sort of sociology focused approach to library study research. I'm interested in how libraries fit within disadvantaged communities, including prisons, obviously, and other forms of disadvantage in the public sphere. I'm also interested in the impact on library staff of working with disadvantaged communities. So yeah, that'll do for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. And you as well didn't mention your picture, which is with your supervisors on your graduation, right?
That's right. A stinking hot day in Melbourne. We all wore silly hats and big cloaks, and it was a fabulous day. So if you get to the end through the end of your PhD, you too can wear a silly hat, and it's worth it just for that.
Yes, excellent. Okay, and our next researcher is Wasim Afzal, and he's not actually here, but he gave me some notes to share. So Wasim is a senior lecturer in the school and earned his PhD in information science from Emporia State University, which is in the US. So his research is situated in the broad area of information behavior and has links with other disciplines, including psychology, education, computer science, and economics. Wasim is interested in understanding and examining the role of information in 3 contexts: the impact of information on cognition, emotions, feelings, and behavior, the relationship of information with violent extremism, And 3, the impact of information need on well-being. Wasim uses both quantitative and qualitative methodologies in his research. In terms of quantitative methods, he uses univariate, bivariate, and multivariate modeling and analysis, factor analysis, and questionnaire validation protocols. He also has experience in qualitative analytical techniques of thematic and content analysis. His recent and ongoing projects include, he just finished a project that looked at the economic, social, cultural, and educational value of children's services at public libraries. And he's currently working on 3 projects: the exploration of relationships between information need and well-being, quantitative and qualitative properties of information, and the theorization in information science. Yes, so that's Wasim, and I believe I am next, actually. So yes, hello, I am Casey again. You've been hearing a lot of me. So I'm come from a teacher librarianship background. So my focus is really on research in school libraries and youth services, working with youth. And questions around diversity and social justice issues in youth literature really drive my research interests, although I do look at a range of questions. And I really like to use qualitative methods too, with focus on participant voice if I'm working with human subjects, or also critical content analysis if I'm looking more at the books themselves. I always like to use my participants' quotes as the titles of my articles, which Jane has told me recently makes them hard to find, and I didn't realize that, but I always think it's important that that voice is really center, and that's a really important part of researching qualitatively. So these are some examples of some of my recent projects. Some collaborations with other supervisors here, including Jane, and yeah, and actually this picture was my first PhD student, Monique Shepard, who graduated 2 years ago. So I just have to brag, as well as she's not here, but another potential supervisor, if you're thinking of studying within the next year, will be Crystal Gagan-Spriggs, who's also in school libraries. And she's going to be finishing up her PhD soon, so she'll be ready to be a supervisor as well. Yes. So moving on, I think you're up next, Simon.
Hi everyone, so I'm Simon Wakeling. My research these days is primarily into public libraries, so I've worked on a couple of ARC projects. One finished last year around co-designing public library spaces, and one that I'm working on at the moment is looking at public libraries in rural Australia. So anything relating to public libraries I'm really interested in, and then also interested in scholarly communication. So a lot of the things Hamid covered earlier I'm also interested in, but I have a particular focus on open scholarship, particularly open access, but also elements of the journal publishing and peer review and open data and so on. And I'm also interested in LIS education. So, you know, any sort of PhDs that wanted to look at LIS, how universities and TAFE and so on teach library and information studies and related skills. So I've done both qualitative and quantitative, and of course mixed methods as well, so quite comfortable with whatever sort of research paradigm you're working in, and yeah, very keen to hear from any interested students.
Great, thanks for that, Simon. Next we have Kit Kavanagh-Ryan.
Hi, thank you so much. Well, yep, my name is Kit. I only had my silly hat ceremony relatively recently, so I am very excited to be joining you today, and would probably make an excellent co-supervisor rather than principal at this stage. But my my research interests sit at the intersection of information studies, children's literature, and disability studies, because as a librarian, I've always worked in youth programming and youth collection development, and that's where I've taught. But academically, my interest really fell into how disability is presented in works that we read, prize, and promote for children. How do we how do we talk about disability with young people, and how is that constructed through the literature that they consume and the literature that wins awards. I'm also beginning some work on accessibility and stigma in the information profession more broadly, so looking at what it's like to actually work as someone with a lived experience of disability in LAS and other parts of the glamour sector. And my research is explicitly interdisciplinary, so I will combine elements such as critical disability studies, reader response theory, and discourse analysis into my work. And I'm currently shifting into a wider range of qualitative research methods. So I hope to hear from some of you.
Great, thanks for that, Kit. And I think you'll be a great primary supervisor in a few months, by the way. And next we have, oops, sorry, Edward Luca.
Thank you, Casey. Good evening, everyone. Coming to you from Wiradjuri land here in Bathurst. So my name's Edward, and I'm fairly new to being an academic myself. Earlier in my career, I worked in academic libraries across various roles, both as a librarian and as a library leader. And it was through that work that I sort of got the bug for doing research and was involved in a number of practice-based research projects where I was translating work that I was doing in practice as a librarian into research publications. Later on, eventually I came to the PhD. In some ways, I feel like I was a bit late to the game, but I was following some advice from colleagues who encouraged me to hold off until I found a question that I really wanted to tackle, a question that I was really curious about and that was going to sustain me for a number of years. And if you're a part-time student, as I was, it's a topic that you need to sit with for many, many years. So you certainly need to have some stamina there. In terms of my research interests, a lot of it is sort of inspired by my work in academic libraries, so including scholarly communication, like a couple of colleagues here, research metrics, academic librarianship more broadly, and the use of design thinking in libraries as well. At a higher level, I'm interested in kind of this connection between people, use of technology, and how both of these inform the design of systems and societies. So if that is kind of an interesting idea, or there's possibly a topic or question there that you'd like to ask, then I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks for that, Edward. And next we have Nilufar.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nilufar Solcu, and I study information with a focus on how information is experienced and created within our ecological layer of life. My work is somehow grounded in the idea that information is not limited to documents or digital systems. Instead, information is something that is lived and shared across everyday life, our relationship, environments, and even across species. So I advocate for a multi-species lens in library and information science. I am also interested in health information, especially when it extends beyond humans. This includes human health information practices as well as animal health information and care practices involving companion animals. I can say another key area of my research interest is relational knowing and shared agency. This includes how meaning co-created in our interactions between humans, human and objects, and also human and animal relationships. So I am especially interested in how knowledge and care emerge in our shared environments like homes, healthcare, and community settings. About the context of library, I'm more interested in supervising research in special libraries, particularly those connected to veterinary, environmental studies, and animal behavior studies. And I would like to support the students working with phenomenology, especially in information experience, to have a first-person perspective on information and what experience as information. I also expert in using multi-species ethnography, using visual, sensory, and creative techniques to study human relationship with information. So if any of these areas sounds like your research interests, I and my constant, very loud companion, Peter, would be very happy to support you in your research journey. Thank you, Casey.
Yes, good point, Nilufar. You get a 2-for-1 with Nilu and Peter there, which is amazing. Okay, oops, sorry guys. Next slide, please. And Sandizo.
Okay, thanks, Casey. So my broad area of research is records and archives, but I'm mainly interested in community archives, indigenous archives, especially from a global perspective. I'm also interested in oral history and oral traditions, how they intersect with archives. Also with emerging technologies, especially looking at, for example, maybe looking at blockchain, how it affects like authenticity in archives. So my research methods are anchored in critical mass method paradigm and mainly influenced by critical theories. So if your research touches on post-coloniality, decoloniality, even queerism among archives, in archives, I am your supervisor. Currently, I'm doing research in funding landscape of community archives in Australia. I'm also co-supervising a PhD student who is doing, she's researching on Pakan community archives here in Australia. So that is me. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sandizo. All right, and Afam, welcome. I see you've just joined us, so perfect timing. And you're just on mute.
Oh, okay.
There you are.
So got it.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good. Okay, good. Hello, everyone. Good to see so many people over here. So yeah, my current research is currently the most current project that I'm doing right now is that we are looking at how the libraries can engage with the community through the help of partners. So there is, they work with, for example, here in Canberra, they work with education department. That's a well-known, so that's a well-known partnership, which in other cities also is quite established. Department of Education and libraries, they share the facilities and so on at several places. But we were looking at also other community engagements that they might have with some organizations which are focused towards helping people, social welfare, and some like government organizations which come in and do their seminars and so on in the library and so on. So those are the things that we were looking at in terms of what kind of partnerships are there and how library can work with those partners to engage the community more. So that's my most current project which is happening. So it is about community engagement, and previously also we looked at the different programs that they have, especially for children, how they attract people into the libraries and so on. And then, of course, what is the behavior of clients and who come into the library and work over there, or needed facilities and so on, and how do they engage with the staff over there. So that was part of that project. So various aspects of this project that we are working on. The other one is information and knowledge needs of GLAM sector. The most recent research that we just submitted is about looking at all the sustainability aspects of the knowledge management related sustainability aspects of the GLAM sector, and how the GLAM sector can handles that information and knowledge needs of within themselves and from externally from other people, and how they are able to then meet all the other needs which are there for the community and for their own staff members. So yeah, these are the two projects that I normally do. And yeah, mostly I do qualitative research, so interviews, and so I feel that yeah, it gives us a much richer knowledge of what is happening, the insights into behaviors of the of whatever population that we are looking at. There is a bit which is like we do add some quantitative part, mostly around just frequency analysis and so on. So nothing more than that. So yeah, these are essentially my two interests that I follow in my research projects at the moment, and yeah, I hope that these two aspects will be of interest to some of the students to do more research on this one. So this is it. That's it for me.
Great. Thanks for that, Asim. Yeah, and I think that brings us to the end of the supervisors. So we have some open time for questions, but I think Asim makes a good point there that, you know, these are just things that we're all currently doing or areas we're interested in, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be interested in that exact thing. You know, we research for a living. It's our thing. So we're always interested in new ideas and learning, exploring new things. So don't think you have to do exactly what we're doing. Yeah, so some time for questions here. So I know we're kind of a smaller group, so I don't want to put you, the visitors, on the, yeah, but feel free to type into the chat or come off mic. Aladapo, Alam, Camille. I'm also going to put in the chat our website which has some more information about doing a research degree. And again, our SICS YouTube channel is in the chat along with this QR code, which takes you to that. And if you go to the SICS YouTube channel, you can see our recorded research seminars, which we do every month or more. And for those, you can get a little bit more details on different projects and what people are working on. So, and Kit just noted in the chat that she ended up teaching, or that they ended up teaching their supervisor about disability studies quite often. So yeah, that's a good point, Kit, that you do learn from each other. And you actually, as the student, become the expert in a way that your supervisors won't even be able to get to the same level. I often think that.
Absolutely. We'll end up with very specialized knowledge, but what we're all learning is how to research more broadly as well. So, you know, I'm absolutely excited to talk with anyone on what they want to on what they want to research, regardless of whether I have directly been in that space before.
Good point, Kit. Yes, any specific questions, or anyone want to share their experiences as supervisors?
Actually, I was interested in knowing more about the graduate certificate in research as a pathway into the PhD.
Yeah, okay, Camille. So yeah, with that one, you take 3 subjects. 2 of them you'll start in, like right now, our students who are in that course are finishing up their first session where they have done actually 3 subjects, but 2 are quite small. And that's really, one is more of a methods where you look at different methods and then you practice some analysis comparing 2 methods. And then they start to get their research proposal kind of together, which then you do in the second half of the year. So for that course, you don't have to come to it knowing exactly what you want to do, but basically if you have a little idea of what you're interested in, then that's a good help. And again, what I think is really great with that course is while you have subject coordinators for your specific subjects, you do get matched with a supervisor, and they can really guide you through that, help you answer questions about your research or give you some ideas on literature and things like that. And I know quite a few of us in here are working with students in that course. And I don't know if you want to speak to your experiences, everyone, but I love it. It's great because it's like doing a little mini PhD for students, and I can just kind of see their interest in research really growing, and it's this kind of beautiful beautiful moment. Anyone else want to share their experiences with the grad start supervision? Maybe Jane, I know you have a student. Kit has one at the moment, Nilufar.
Yeah, it's good. So I've got two students who are both studying very different things. It's a really nice way to get a chance to learn how to research, but also to explore a topic that you might want to take further into a PhD. And you kind of end up with a head start to the PhD by doing it. So in some ways, it feels like a bit of a barrier that you have to do this research training before you're eligible to get into the PhD program. But ultimately, it does end up being a bit of a shortcut. So it's a good thing to do if you need to do that to get into the PhD program. It's certainly not wasted time. It's a good experience.
Yeah, I have two students as well. One I'm co-supervising with Casey, which is great, and another who has started with a project that is so big that she absolutely wants it to be a PhD, but she's using this this year-long session to try and focus down to just one fraction of it, which she'll then be able to use as part of her literature review for larger projects later on. And so, like Jane said, it really offers a useful useful entry point. And for those of us who may have had career interruptions or other events throughout their lives that make going straight from, say, an honors degree into a PhD a bit challenging. I know I certainly didn't have a traditional uni straight into PhD path, and I know that a lot of other people trying to get into higher degree research programs now also have that experience. Subjects like this, rather than being like a blocking point or a stop, can be really helpful to get you to focus on what you'd want to spend the next, as Edward suggested, 3, 4, 5, 7 years of your life on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, I totally agree. And I guess in the subject the students taking in this program, they give them lots of new knowledge and techniques, and also teach them about the procedure they need to learn to do a very ethical and academic research. So I definitely say it's not just a step to go to the PhD, but it's a very important learning component which they need before doing a PhD, I guess.
Thanks, Nilufar. And Oladapo, you have a question. Would you like to say it out loud? Are you able? Is your mic working?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to apologize. I couldn't. I've been struggling to come online because I went on a night shift. So I'm just coming back from work. So
okay, welcome. No worries. We're recording, so.
Thank you very much. My concern is that I've been able to go through a lot of schools, institutions there in Australia, online, their website, trying to search for the supervisors, but I really don't know if I'm not doing it right because I'm not really getting a feedback, or I don't know if I have to go through another course before I can do a PhD because I'm trying to register for a PhD. But I was told I have to search for supervisor first before I can get anything done. So now I'm at the point of I'm not saying I'm frustrated, but I've been able to send a lot of mails out, but I'm not getting a feedback. Maybe there's another module I need to first pass on. I don't know if that's what I need. I have to go to maybe a course to do a diploma or whatever before I can do that in Australia.
Yeah, well, so for our course, we do require some research, some previous research subjects. So, oh, I don't think I included that. Oh, I didn't really include that here, but yeah, we require I believe it's 18 points of research subjects, so about 2 research method subjects, and then a dissertation or thesis subject as well. So if you'd like to send me an email and you could share your transcripts with me if you have that, if you have those courses, I can have a look for you. And then our next step would, be getting, I wouldn't say you have to send a research proposal to find a supervisor, but it is handy for us to know a little bit of information about what you want to study so that I can know, or so that we can all know if it's something that we think we're qualified to work with you on. You know, maybe, of course, that is going to change and evolve as you are enrolled and start working on your research and your questions before your confirmation. But if we just have a little bit of idea initially, I think another good thing to do is from that link about doing a research degree. If you go to that, there's also a little search box which takes you into the university's system where people have uploaded their research outputs. So then within that, you can see what people are publishing on, not just within our school, but in the university more broadly, and see if anyone is fitting your topic area as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so feel free to email me. My email is just right here. I'll pop it into the chat too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming and asking questions. Oh, sorry, it's very big.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just stop sharing if there's any other questions or anything anyone wants to share, because we've all been through it and gone through the PhD at one point or another, some of us more recently than others. But yeah, it's definitely a massive journey to undertake, something really big but really rewarding. I think especially if you're interested in a topic and like Edward said, something you're going to live with for a while. But generally that's what brings our students to us anyway, is that interest. Great. Thanks so much for coming tonight. And again, this is going to be, or this is recorded, so I'm going to pop that on the YouTube channel. And yeah, feel free to explore the channel and see what people are researching in a bit more detail. I think Kit did our last seminar last week and was some great discussions around her work, so around their work. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have a great night or
Thank you.
day
Thank you.
wherever you
Bye.
are.
Bye.
Thanks. Thanks, Camille.